Welcome to the Success Partner Podcast. I'm Daya Naef, your host and founder of The Success Partner. On this show, we dive into the stories of attorneys, business professionals, and entrepreneurs who have navigated the ups and downs of building successful careers and businesses. From the strategies they've implemented to the challenges they've overcome, we're here to uncover the insights that can help you on your own journey to success. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Welcome back, everybody, to the Success Partner Podcast. I am your host, Daya Naef, and today we have Jonathan White with us in the studio. Welcome, Jonathan.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have this talk with you.
Yeah, this is going to be so much fun. So it's very casual. So just go ahead and take it away. Tell us what you do and a little bit about yourself.
Talk about a softball, right? Talk about me. Yeah, sure. I'd love to. So my name's Jonathan White. I'm an estate planning attorney. I'm in Danvers, Massachusetts, kind of the North Shore of Massachusetts. I think like most people that say I'm an estate planning attorney, two other things are true. For the most part, we didn't start out as estate planning attorneys. Something else got us there. And we do other things besides estate plan. So to round out my practice, I do estate administration. I do some real estate conveyancing, although that is getting, not as much anymore. And then kind of underlying all of that is a base level business law, especially because a lot of my real estate conveyancing is in the commercial world. So you have to have the business.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I do. It didn't start out that way, though. First 10 years of my career, I was a pit bull. I was a courtroom litigator.
All right.
I started out in the government sector. I was an assistant attorney general for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and I operated in the civil arena. So basically, I defended the Commonwealth when somebody sued it. And I got to admit, I love that job. I wish I could have kept that job for a long time. It just didn't pay the bills for a growing family. But what I loved about that job was I really didn't know what my day was going to be like from a caseload perspective. Because if you think of all the buildings the Commonwealth owns, all the cars the Commonwealth has on the highway, all the employees the Commonwealth has, all the land it owns, there were just so many different types of cases that came your way. It was an amazing first job out of law school because you got into learning different areas of law while sharpening litigation skills. So it was like, yeah, I sharpened my litigation skills, but I also learned how to be a really resourceful researcher, in some cases a BSer. Sure, I know about this, right? And just kind of do it. But, the point is, it wasn't hard to figure out how I landed where I landed when you considered that was my first job. It was just great. And I got a really good mentor there, a guy named Mark Sutliff. He's still there. I owe a lot of how my career kind of matriculated because of working with Mark, the lessons he taught me. But like I said, we had a young family, I had to get out of there. Stayed in the litigation world, but I went in-house to insurance defense. Kind of the same thing I did for the Commonwealth, a little narrower scope. I worked for an insurance company. So it was basically car accidents and homeowner insurance policies. Loved that job, pretty decent job, but again, just felt the need to do something else. So, hey, let's go to a firm. So after, 9.5 years of managing my own caseload, being the person in front of the court, kind of putting my arguments forth, really handling a 70-ish caseload by myself. There were no second chairs at the insurance company. There were no second chairs at the AG's office for the most part. I went to doing the research to carry the bag for the guy who was going to argue.
Quite a switch.
I went from no billable hours to living life by a 6-minute hour.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say it was a tough change for me. I didn't last that long in that arena. So I hung my shingle. And initially, I was going to do what, the opposite of what I did. Let me do plaintiff's personal injury and let me do criminal defense. And that's what I was doing. I actually have the business plan my wife made me write. And we look at it pretty regularly. And it's amazing. Number one, I couldn't be farther from what we set out to. And number two, I knew nothing about the practice of owning a business. I knew nothing about being an entrepreneur at the time. So it's almost as if it was like on a napkin with a crayon.
But it was better than nothing.
Better than nothing. Well, that was a condition. A condition was if I was doing this, I had to do a business plan. So yeah, I kind of jumped out my own and was doing that. And I very quickly learned, geez, these personal injury cases are like investments. You don't get paid right away and you might have to put money into them. And if another attorney is sending it to me, it's probably not that good of a case to begin with. Geez, these criminal defendants really only kind of pay you what you ask for up front, or at least the kind I was initially dealing with. And so to kind of make ends meet, if you remember eBay was a thing back then, and attorneys would post work on eBay. especially real estate closing attorneys.
There you go.
And in Massachusetts, they would say, can I get an attorney to come grab a loan package, bring it to the customer, the borrower, walk them through it, notarize it, and bring it back to me? I'll pay you like $150.
I did that too. I didn't know you got them on eBay. It was
That's, yeah,
notaries.com or something that I.
yeah. Well, my
That's
wife
awesome.
saw the ad and said, hey, listen, you can do like 10 of these a week. And I started doing
It
that.
helps. It helps.
Well, exactly. It helped. To me, the best part about that section of my like professional journey was how it switched from me just running packages and being a notary at $150 to actually getting closings themselves. So my mother, who's been deceased for a while, but she ran the Chamber of Commerce in our local town. And one Sunday at Sunday dinner, because we had Sunday dinner with her, good Italian mother, asked me how is it going. That was a big shift, right? And all proud, I'm telling her about, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Oh, and by the way, Carrie found this thing, and I might as well have got the wooden spoon across me. The look I got from her, I felt like the dumbest person in the world. And she said to me, Jonathan, did you forget your mother runs the Chamber of Commerce? Do you know how many loan officers, bankers, filters I know? Instead of making $150, you can make the whole. And so that wake up moment then got me to start doing closings. That was about 10 years into my career that happened. And so for the next kind of 2-ish years, I kind of worked out of my house, kind of rented a little space from my buddy and started doing that. And then 2011, I found an attorney who wanted to retire. Jordan and White was born. And then kind of what transitioned was as I started going down the real estate world, inevitably you have title problems. You have to fix them. They are usually probate related. So I started doing probate administration. Because of that, the reason Dana Jordan, who's the attorney that I partnered with, wanted to retire was Massachusetts changed the rules. We went from a case law state to a uniform probate code. He didn't want to learn the probate code. So I learned how to probate under the probate code. And that kind of went like that. Dana had some estate planning in, so in came some estate planning. And then kind of slowly over time, it just started to morph into I'm always fixing things. I'm always like catching them in a closing or learning from a mistake in an administration, advising a family. What would happen if I got in the front end of this? Mm-hmm. And actually was proactive in helping people with them. So that mindset shift started to happen. And then really, like a lot of other, I think, estate planning attorneys that get into it, I had a personal experience, right? My mother passed away. She was an only child. Her parents survived her. We were extremely close. And sure enough, the day came, I had to go act for them as they became incapacitated. And then I had to wind their affairs down when they passed away. And what I saw was a very well-written and well-funded, meaning everything was aligned, estate plan. And it was incredibly easy for me to get into their shoes, even when you discount the fact I'm an attorney. When you discount the fact that I did some estate planning, I was knowledgeable in the area, it was still easy for me. They lived in another state, so some of the rules were different. But that experience combined with like that trajectory I had going really, really culminated in a, how can I recreate this experience for people I come in contact with every day? Because it doesn't have to be hard. Your experience with an attorney and incapacity of death shouldn't be this mess of a title I'm cleaning up, this horror show in the court. It should be something that just happens so that your attention, focus, and energy can be where it needs to be, right? Helping, grieving, whatever else it is, not how do I handle this stuff? Nice. So that's kind of the truncated version of why I do what I do now and how I got there. So yeah.
That's a beautiful story, and I agree. I used to do curative work as well, and just nobody did the things right, and people were looking at large legal bills to get it straight, so they just never got it straight. And then the property would go to the city, or who knows what would happen to it until somebody wanted to ended up buying it or putting it in some kind of whatever. And then they had all this mess to clean up. So it wasn't until like a third party that actually wanted to come in and buy the property until everything and would pay for everything to get cleaned up. What a mess.
Yeah, what a mess. And it's kind of, I often look back, like I mentioned, I look back at that initial business plan, and that causes me to kind of think about other things. And I wonder, like, if I didn't have this segment of my journey, what would it be like? So I feel like each piece really were like Legos that I put together to bring me where I was. And each piece was equally as important. Because sometimes I sit there and I say, why didn't I start doing this earlier? Well, I didn't, right? I didn't.
We didn't know what don't know now. We know now what we didn't know then. I'm also keeping like visualizing this as you're telling me the story and thinking about your love for hockey. And so you're very fast on your feet, and you're also, a ref and a coach and all this. And it's like, I feel like this is all kind of feeding
Yeah.
in together.
Yeah, you might have something there. This was actually a weird winter for me. If you just talk about hockey for a quick second. I learned how to skate when I was 4 years old. I'm 51 years old now. From the time I learned how to skate until this winter, I was either a hockey player, a hockey referee, or a hockey coach, period.
Yeah.
This winter was the first winter I was nothing. I had no hockey besides watching whatever I watched in my life, and it was weird.
Mm-hmm.
It was a weird adjustment. I don't know what I'll do next winter, if anything. But, again, you think about like it was just in your life for so long. Then all of a sudden it wasn't. It was a weird transition. But you're right. There were a lot of lessons I ended up, pulling out of that experience, whatever role I had, to then use somewhere else in life. So thank you for pointing that out and noticing that.
That's what we're here for. And you're also telling me about a ritual you have, or a process that you have. Can you share more about that?
I can. It's actually really, like, sometimes the world just works and you can't make stuff up. So what we're going to talk about is my gratitude practice. And we'll talk about when I started it, why I started it, what impact it's had. And I'll talk to you about the tool I use. And that's why this is such an incredible day, because the tool that I use turned itself over today, meaning I got a new version of it today because the old one I used up. So we'll get to that in a second. Just how that aligns is great. In October of 2018, I started a gratitude journaling project. Thinking back on it, I believe how I found it and said I should do something like this goes back to a gentleman who I subscribed to his email. Every Friday was like 5-bullet Friday. And at the time, whatever week it was, he had talked about, thing I'm into, gratitude journaling, and he described a product called the 5-minute journal. The 5-minute journal is the tool I use. Actually, it's always with me. I said I started a new one today. I'll get into why I like this tool, but let's just talk about gratitude journaling. So what he advocated for and what my research then found and gravitated me towards doing it was a mindset shift, right? I think a lot of us kind of get up and it's immediately to our phone. It's immediately to the children that need help. It's immediately to something that is going to pull energy from us. And I really believe that can set your day up to go almost any way except for how you want it.
Yeah, true.
So kind of all the science I read not only talk about why gratitude journaling is important, but when to do it is equally important. So, kind of, I knew I had to do something to have time for myself. The idea, put the oxygen mask on yourself before you help somebody else. When you're in the airplane, there's a reason they have you do that. Then the reason gratitude journaling really spoke to me was, in 2018, I was, 4 years into this new practice, actually 7 years into the practice, but 4 years past when Dana actually had retired, stuck, unhappy with where I was. And so my mindset was just really pulling me down. So the idea of gratitude journaling is really an exercise that if you develop it, you'll develop a habit of really counting wins. I think, taking the word gratitude, if you want to be all Latin about it and find out the root of the word and what it means, you can do all that. But I think a true definition will elude you. Of course, you can go to Webster's and find it. But at the end, for me, gratitude is really the practice of saying thank you. Right? Saying thank you for something in your life. And if you do that enough, that translates to me into counting wins.
Okay.
And if you can count wins, you will notice a mindset shift over time. So you'll view situations, you'll view life differently. You'll kind of turn from either a glass is half empty or a pessimistic outlook to optimistic, glass half full. I actually look at it as what is in the glass is more important than whether it's half full or empty. So to me, the gratitude journaling goes to what are you putting in that cup? What is in the glass? And that's what gratitude journaling is for me. And the practice, and there's so many different ways to do it. It doesn't matter how, as long as you're doing it and you're doing it consistently. Over time, you'll notice your mind scratch new grooves, new habits, new ways of looking at things. Of course, you have bad days. Of course, things don't go your way. But you're able to kind of hold yourself still and pull the good out of that situation, even though it may not have been the best situation for you after you develop this practice for a while. So really, it's about finding wins and then priming your mind to be conditioned to find wins. So that's what gratitude journaling is. That's a practice I picked up in 2018. I've done it virtually every day since. Again, there are some days I'm like, I forgot to journal. It happens, right? We're not perfect every day. So that's what that is. And for me, what happened was I noticed that became a catalyst, whether it was the journaling itself or just the fact that as my mindset shifted, I noticed other things in my life. But, I can trace back almost to a T that practice with making decisions that really positively impacted not just my practice, but my life as well. Mm-hmm. Making decisions differently that led to paths. For example, I started, right around the time I started that practice and was a couple months in, is when I decided to find a coaching program for myself. And that coaching program has been pivotal to me. I'm not just professionally, but personally. That practice led me to want to change how I structured my life. I didn't want to feel a certain way in the morning. I didn't want to feel a certain way at night. So all those things then kind of sprung from that. And if I look at when I really started to have the true growth, it came after that. And again, whether that was the one that did it or that was a piece that helped me catalog it, right? It doesn't matter to me. It worked, right?
And the one thing is, I was just going to point out how key it is. And people always think, well, business is over here and personal is over here, but we're only one being. We're a human here, existing and being and having a life experience, and I can't just completely compartmentalize and think they're not going to reflect.
Well, the good news for me was, like I said, I started this around October of 2018. So by the time COVID rolled around, to go back to that point in time, I was already preconditioned to handle that, I think, in a different way than others that weren't preconditioned.
What a blessing.
And it was amazing. And so for me, I went into COVID, of course, scared and nervous, but I went in with a mindset of, I'm not just going to get through this. I'm going to be better on the back end of this thing. And if you want to kind of mark different points in time where my practice changed positively, right? And it was at the end of COVID, my law firm had completely changed itself. My income was up, like just everything was positive from it. And again, I attribute my success in that to using a gratitude practice and taking that time every day. So, so for me, in COVID, having that gratitude practice changed how I went into that, how I went through it. And at the end, I saw a law firm that was much different in a positive way than what went into it. So it ended up being almost like a rubber band moment that propelled me forward. And of course, there are other things involved, but the mindset really made a difference. Try and talk some granular things, right? So again, I use the 5-minute journal. That's the tool I use. I like it because it's basic gratitude journaling for dummies. If you're not familiar with it, it is a almost like Mad Libs. So it is set up with prompts so that in the morning it asks you to do a few things. And at the end of the day, it asks you to do a few things. And, essentially what it wants you to do is put the date in because it's a blank journal. There's a quote to ponder. And, what I do with the quotes are different. Sometimes I underline, sometimes I highlight, sometimes I think, sometimes I look up who did it. But there's a quote to ponder. And then it wants you to list 3 things you're grateful for. Then it wants you to write 3 things that would make your day great. And then it has an affirmation, right? And the affirmation sentence is basically something you're hoping to be. And you go about your day. At the end of the day, 3 highlights and 1 thing you learned. How I write in the journal can change time over time, but that's the setup, and I love it. And so for me, the big change kind of came with this mindset shift. And let's take exercise as the example, all right? Because I think we can all relate to exercise. How many times I have to work out today, right? Mm-hmm. I got to and go to the work with, I got to get up and go to work. After I'd been doing this for a little while, I noticed a change, and the change was this. I started writing, I get to work out today. I get to go to work. I get to be a business owner. I'm a Peloton freak. I get to be a Peloton. Have went to get. And that was the first kind of real example of there's something here, right? Like I get to do this because there are people that don't. Like for whatever reason you want to pick, whether it's a physical ailment, whether it's the finances but it doesn't matter. And so I had that moment of, whoa, something's different. And when I look back, because my favorite part of the 5-minute journal, which I experienced this morning, was you reach the last page and it has a challenge. And the challenge is go back to page 1 and see what you wrote over the last 6 months of your life, because it's a 6-month long journal. So you get to go back and look. And that's a fantastic thing. That's a point I'll get to. That's my second favorite point about this. But in that time frame, somewhere in 2018, 2019, I noticed that shift from, I was saying, I have to work out today. And even if it wasn't, I have to work out, it was like, I have to work out. Because even without that emphasis on it, you're still like, I have to do this. Like I have to find, to I get to. I suddenly noticed I was writing like, I have a sore calf today. I'm happy about that because it tells me my body's like, and when that happened, and that happened with my work mindset as well, much different shift because I got to free myself from things that I felt were pulling me back and focus on the things I wanted to do. And the mindset shift of, if I wasn't doing this, I'd be back billing in 6-minute increments. No, I get to run my own business how I want to. So that was a huge shift. And gratitude journaling did that. It got me out of that kind of monotonous circle of, we're doing this on Mondays, we're doing this on Tuesday. It was, no, I get to do this today. So that was the first kind of big shift I noticed. And that happened really early on.
I think that's going to be the sound bite for the whole segment is I get to run my firm. Yeah. So back to the firm for just a minute. There we are. So back to the firm for a little bit, and we can kind of just recap on back to how people find you. And
can we make one more point?
Yes.
And then I'll make it quick. So
yes.
Yeah, the second kind of point I think a gratitude journal practice does. If you just do it to do it, fine, you get something out of it. But if you do it in a way that you can go back, and this is where the matter. I think too many people are always looking at the horizon. They're looking at I'm going to, do this, and you'll never reach your horizon goals. Mm-hmm. So it's important as you're doing things to stop where you are, look back where you came from, and measure the progress you made, right? You measure the gain you made, not the gap you have. Gratitude journaling, and especially, the tool you use can build that in. It's important. Like I mentioned, the last page in the tool I use says go back to page 1 and look. I love it. Well, sometimes I actually go back to another book and look. What was it like in 2019? And so you have this thing to be like, look where I came from. When you start doing that, you don't feel as bad if you haven't reached your ultimate goal, or you might set a different ultimate goal because you can see where you came from. So to me, those are the two biggest things that come out of a gratitude journaling practice: mindset shift and measuring the gain you've made in life, not the gap you still have.
That makes a lot of sense because sometimes we don't feel like we're making any progress, but then you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I have really, really changed.
Yeah. Yep.
That's great. Well, I'll put a link in the chat to both the book and also how to get a hold of you, which is How do we get a hold of you?
Yeah. So there's two really good ways to get a hold of me. If you are, a phone user, you call the office, 978-744-2811. You'll get Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie's awesome. She is the point of entry for all things in my firm, and she's the Jonathan Wrangler. So she takes care of me and makes sure that everyone gets to me. So she's awesome. And if you are an emailer, you can email me at jwhite@jordanwhitellc.com. And again, we will get right back to that. And those are the two best ways to get a hold of me. Of course, you can always find us at our website, which is Jordan White LLC.
That's great. I will have all that in the show notes for those listeners who didn't have a chance to grab a pen. Again, this has been Jonathan White. This has been another episode of the Success Partner Podcast. I'm your host, Daya Naef. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on the Success Partner Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation and found some valuable takeaways to apply to your own business journey. Remember, this show is brought to you by The Success Partner, where we help small law firms and business owners achieve unparalleled success through strategic guidance, operational excellence, and effective marketing. If you're ready to take your business to the next level, visit thesuccesspartner.net to learn more. Until next time, keep striving for success, and I will see you in the next episode.